Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Nightreign. Today I've got 3 more sets of builds for you to use that you could be using against the new Sovereign version of fulghor, the Centaur. So let's get into it, starting with Ironeye here, who is actually a top tier pick, of course, for fulghor because you've got this consistent DPS, which can be a problem against the type of bosses that move around a lot. A lot of the Night Lords do that, but obviously this Centaur literally has big leaps and charge attacks that have him zooming away. And this new version, once you hit that next phase, he starts to use different range attacks with a holy bow. So by having your own consistent damage, it's very helpful. But it's also very susceptible to stagger. This will lend itself to the Raider build we're going to talk about, obviously. But that's really nice for the marking, of course, of Ironeye, since that causes a mini stagger and then leads to potential proper staggers as your teammates or you continuously hit it. So how can we maximize the damage of Ironeye's constant ranged output? Let's take a look at the relics for this build. Now this is important because you still want the 1 extra character skill use. The best setup for this build is unfortunately a red, blue and yellow, which is not the most flexible. So it's very likely you're going to need on this red slot this extra character skill use. Worst case scenario, to be fair, you could just use one that extends the duration of the mark, but in my opinion, 1 extra character skill use is much better. You can reapply the mark while it's still on with that second use, obviously, and with the ridiculous movement, damage and iframes that it provides per dash, having 2 charges of it is a lifesaver in many tight pressure situations. But here's the core concept. We have Knight of the Lord, which is the final boss Hjalsta's relic, and the Dark Knight, the champion. This is the new relic from fulghor himself. So what's interesting about this is the ability to generate a load of art gauge throughout a run. It's the fact that you're boosting attack power of added affinity attacks, and then you're still getting the familiar maximum stamina bonus. This equates to about 5 endurance, so it's a lot. Boost attack power of added affinity attacks though. What this means is when you apply a buff, you infuse your weapon with a benefit, this is going to enhance this output. So as you find one of the different greases and apply like fire to it, while that's going, this line increases that potency. It's a 10% damage increase per infusion. And with this setup, we actually get multiple lines of this. We have this one on the new relic, and then the one from the final boss, another line of it there. This works great with the Knight of the Lord relic because every time you switch weapon, it just gives it one of these affinity attacks. To be specific about what that really means, it's the element buffs, as you will. So magic, fire, lightning and holy, while you've got those effects buffing up your weapon, you're getting this 10% bonus, or potentially 20% with this double relic setup. Further, just by swapping weapons, you're going to get a bonus to attack power, thanks from the Knight of the Lord relic. So with this simple combination, we're getting a hefty amount of added power through affinity buffs. We've got a guaranteed way to get those affinity buffs. We get attack power when we make those swaps to do it. And we have significantly more stamina than normal. And for the whole run as we kill enemies, we're generating a load of ult gauge. And as you know, with Ironeye's ultimate, it's one of the most reliable and effective ultimates in the game. Ridiculous range, super wide AoE, guaranteed interruption for whatever you hit. With this generation, you're able to kind of use it more throughout the run. So what was kind of a fun, silly build has become quite a strong contender for a strong option. And I've used this to great effect in my own recent Sovereign fulghor hunts. You can see me with a couple of randoms as I just did one today, barely having to heal, dealing great DPS throughout the run, saving the run by bringing them back when they both went down, and getting the kill. So give it a try, it's really fun. And remember, you don't need like 3 different bows, guys. Just having 2 that you swap between, that maybe you've got to purple on both like I have here, that's more than good enough for this job. You can see what buff you've actively got on your weapon by the obvious visuals on the weapon, but also by the icon under your health bar, telling you very clearly that's a magic weapon, that's a holy, that's a lightning. And obviously fulghor is weak to lightning, so you can swap over and over until you get lightning if you want. So yeah, super fun build, very effective as well. So for this build, we're going to be talking about Raider and a really powerful setup that you can run that actually makes you a good amount of runes throughout the run using the newer relic from hard mode, Adel in specific. The idea or the core of this build is pretty straightforward. It's all about stance breaking. And one of the best ways you can do that is by power stancing 2 big weapons with good strength scaling for Raider. With our new relic that became available with the Sovereign update, improved stance breaking while wielding 2 armaments basically means you've got improved stance breaking while you're in power stance. On top of that, we just get +3 endurance to make that even better, and stamina recovery with each successful attack. So it's incredible for just general gameplay if you're able to get any power stance setup. It's a red slot though, so it does require a specific setup. That's because the new relic that we're talking about, the Dark Knight of the Baron, the one that comes from hard mode Adel, is this one, a red relic. So we're going to need at least 2 red slots for this build. Anyway, the idea here is all about damaging through critical hits. And further, you get some runes every single time you get those critical hits. Those runes actually stack up during the whole run, and if you've got a proper setup like this, you'll be going for backstabs and especially stagger breaks and critical hits from that. So you actually get an absolute ton of critical hits off with this build, especially in single player, where obviously you're able to stagger break a lot more often, and you're not got 2 other players trying to steal those critical hits. It's interesting because the normal version of the Knight of the Baron's a little bit different, but with the same theme. Improved critical hits +1, but instead you get a little bit, a tiny bit of ult charge, and you get some big stamina recovery. But with our setup, we're doing so well on the stamina anyway, that's overkill. So it's a shame to lose a little bit of the ult charge, no doubt, but just straight up improved critical hits and the stacking damage of that. I mean, you see that it starts to get pretty gnarly against some of these targets. So yeah, ultra stagger breaking, lots of jump L1 for the power stance hits, and lots of criticals whenever you can get them. But how are you going to enhance this even further? Well, obviously, it's also another new relic that you can get from the Sovereign Sigils. It's the meta relic at this time. Attack power permanently increased for each Everjail prisoner defeated. This seems to stack in on itself, and if there isn't like a shifting earth, there can be up to 7 Everjails around the map. If you're able to get like 4 a run or higher, this is absolutely busted. You're not going to be able to get a higher attack increase compared to this. But you don't have to use this specific yellow relic, it's just the easiest way to get it. If you have a different relic that has that line for each Everjail, you could run that and some other perks. But there's no denying that starting with 1 key in your possession at the start makes this a lot more reliable, because you have to run around doing, the grand cathedrals, opening the big chests on the ground and on the top floor. And then you got the same in, say, the Fort Height, where you got to find the big chest and get a key from it. It's not that big of a deal, but if you don't have to do that, you can spend more time just going to the jails and getting this massive damage increase. For this setup then, I am using the Raider's Chalice specifically because that is the one that can allow this. 2 red and then in anything allows that yellow slot, obviously. And as far as I can see, there's not like a better way you're going to be able to do this. So if you haven't done the Raid of Remembrance and you want to try this, you might want to consider it. Plus, to be fair, he has literally the best Remembrance skin anyway, so double up on the value. But yeah, to play this, it really is just straightforward. You're going to be looking for a strong power stance setup. You start with the Raider's Great Axe, which you need to understand is technically a colossal weapon. So, Duelist Great Axe, Rotten Great Axe, these are also colossal weapons. Having 2 colossal weapons equipped, so 1 in both hands, that's power stance. We've seen how people have very clearly, commonly misunderstood that a Great Axe is not a colossal weapon because they've got a couple of big axes as colossal weapons. It's fair enough. It's not very clear mid-run. So just be aware that something that you might commonly see, like a Rusted Anchor, is a Great Axe and will not be power stance with a colossal weapon. The easiest way to tell is to try press L1 and see if your character attacks with both weapons at once versus using just his left hand. If he uses just his left hand, that's not power stance. But this does mean you could use your starting weapon and something like the awesome Giant Crusher, or say like the Troll's Hammer or the Crozier here. They all count as colossal weapons, even though they're very different shapes. So these can be power stanced. Until then, it's not like it's the end of the world to be two-handing a starting weapon like Raiders, or finding a decent colossal weapon that you just hold on to, and you're just trying to find that good combination of maybe a Great Axe or 2 colossal weapons, and as soon as you get that power stance going, it begins being all about jumping L1s. So if you can enhance your jump attack damage from passives, or get some power up while holding 2 armaments, these can go a long way. Obviously, anything that's going to help you break stances is going to be amazing. You want to be hitting those critical hits. I find this playstyle very reliable. I get it activated every run. It feels ridiculously straightforward and strong, and is very simple because it's just a lot of L1 spam and jump L1. And it's led to some of the most reliable, easy wins I've experienced in the game so far. So give it a try. Alright, last up, let's continue this cool idea of the new relic and this benefit to added affinity attacks. One clear pick you could go for with this is of course Duchess here. The reason for that is because her starting weapon comes with Magic Dagger, which is basically an Ash of War that provides you with an affinity bonus. So we have added magic damage to our dagger here, and with that relic we're getting that 10% damage bonus. Right off the bat, this can give one of the characters that starts a little bit slow kind of a bigger juice to its initial opening. Thanks to the fact that you're getting this little bonus to the actual affinity on the weapon, whatever that is, and then also the potency of the weapon buffs, whether that's your ashes like we just looked at, or a grease effect you found and used. Through our relic setup, we can go a little bit harder on that, and it's easy to do and scales really well, in fact, thanks to the all yellow setup with the Erdtree Grail. So we have that new relic again, increased max stamina, like 5 endurance, amazing for everyone. We got that boost attack power of added affinity attacks. This works for that magic buff as we just looked at. And we get more art gauge for our ultimate. Not as amazing for Duchess, sadly, because you're not spamming this ult so much, you're using it for iframes or dire situations. But with this relic setup, it means you can use it pretty much every main fight, and so you can really give your team a breather for some free DPS windows or chances to heal. It is a helpful ult, if not directly impactful. We're comboing this specifically with Knight of the Wise. You could actually choose to, in this yellow slot, instead of Knight of the Wise, go for Knight of Miasma for more of a frost focus. But the problem with that is it overwrites your starting dagger's Ash of War, so you won't have that magic start. And then you end up with a status related thing which isn't tied to this concept. We want affinity, not status. So, Knight of the Wise makes a lot of sense because you're getting increased maximum FP. This works of course for the Duchess, who is a hybrid Dex intelligence caster. This equates to about 5 mind, so it's a lot more FP to work with. Then it means your starting armament, which we want to use for that magic buff Ash of War, just comes with poison. And if you poison anything with your many successive attacks, you get the poison proc and get attack power as well. So simple, effective synergy that doesn't get in the way of one another. Plus the poison is going to be great for fulghor. Like I said, with all the running around he does, that reliable damage goes a long way, and he isn't resistant to poison. But lastly, in the all-important final slot, we have the meta relic. Attack power permanent increases for each jail that you do, and you get 1 key to start with, and treasure marked on the map on top, which is awesome. This simple setup allows you to have a stronger beginning using the Ash of War, having stronger basics. And with this attack power buff by doing the jails like everyone's doing, you scale very well with the highest attack power buff that exists in the game right now from a relic. I still recommend you go for a kind of hybrid playstyle with this one, where you're looking to get some spells and actually cast, especially if you're going after fulghor with this. Remember, he has 0 magic resistance unlike most of the bosses, so it feels like you hit just harder with magic. Between your magic dagger attacks and maybe some reliable spellcasting options you might find from some staffs on the run, you get to do a mix of melee and ranged against this in and out style of target. So it works quite well in concept. And I would recommend you find any successive attack perks that you can get. Successive attack build-up or damage negation, that'll go a long way. A simple, more fun build that isn't quite as strong as the other 2 we've looked at today, but one that works in that new relic in an interesting way that's relevant to our current target, the Sovereign Centaur. But there you have it, that's my overview of 3 different builds in relation to our current update. I'd strongly recommend out of the 3 of these, probably the Raider one is going to be the most effective and easy to play with all the jump stance break. He's just so susceptible to it for some reason. It may very well be the most susceptible to stance breaking Sovereign boss will actually deal with. So make use of it while you can. Otherwise, Ironeye's reliable DPS with that setup, absolutely fantastic, and honestly really fun to swap between. If you guys have any cool ideas or suggestions for different builds, especially with fulghor in mind, then you can let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.